Miami Vice from 2006. This is a movie directed by Michael Mann, starring Colin Farrell, Jamie Foxx, and Gong Li. The plot summary: based on the 1980s TV action drama, this update focuses on Vice detectives Crockett and Tubbs as their respective personal and professional lives become dangerously intertwined. So there was an episode we did last year, I believe, or last season, on movies that shaped our like travel wish list, places we want to
Mhm.
go. And listeners might remember I had Bad Boys, the Michael Bay film, on there about Miami, a place I'd always wanted to go. And this year I actually went to Miami. And it lived up to my expectations. And actually, I think this movie, in a way, encapsulates Miami more to me now than Bad Boys was sort of the I want to go to Miami, and now I've been, and I think this is more the Miami movie to me now, which is pretty cool. So I'll put the link in the comments down below so you guys can go back and re-listen to that episode if you want to. But another reason why I wanted this film on my list, well, first of all, I think it is the movie I've saw the most times this year, which is interesting going back and looking at that twice
Mm.
in theaters, and then once preparing for this episode, and then once on New Year's last year. But folks that are on film Twitter, this movie kind of had a moment. Pop culture critic posted on Twitter basically like, I'm about to show my girlfriend my favorite movie. This is like the most important step in our relationship, like no going back. Here it is. And he posted the intro to Miami Vice, and it started this whole big diatribe online. I don't participate in film Twitter, but I love following it. And it was definitely cool to see a movie that is from 20 years ago, almost now, kind of have a big cultural zeitgeist moment again, to the point
Mm.
where there's a theater in LA where 4 days after this tweet went out and caused this firestorm online, they actually had a screening. They're like, we're going to show a Miami Vice because it's kind of becoming really hot online. So I went and saw that in the theater, which is the first time I've seen the movie since 2006. And then about a month later, they actually had a screening at the Egyptian Theater hosted
Mm.
by a Miami Vice podcast. There's a podcast where all they do is talk about this movie, which maybe this podcast might turn into here, but where they brought in actually the guy from New York. They flew him in to talk about like, yeah, I'm the guy who like started this whole thing, which was pretty
Oh
funny to see
wow.
that. And then they had Michael Mann had made a surprise appearance and did a
Oh my
Q&A afterwards
gosh.
too, which was freaking amazing. So that is why to me like this movie is will always be associated to me with 2004, and maybe again for a lot of other people who got sucked into the Twitter discourse on it. Also, this is one of my favorite movies. I was not a big fan of it when it first came out. I thought it was okay, but I watch this movie multiple times every year, and I just there's something about it I absolutely love. And I'll talk more about the film in a sec, but want to get your thoughts on Miami Vice. Were you following the Twitter discourse that was going on at the time or not?
No, I missed this, but I do know that you saw it, and I do know that it was playing in theaters. And I was wondering that what started this, and I was like, oh, maybe because Man made a movie last year, or that's where my head was going. So I had no clue that all this drama was unfolding. So that's fun to hear. But yeah, I never watched this movie before. I think we've talked about that,
Hmm.
off mic and maybe even on the podcast. So it was fun to watch it for the first time. And yeah, I guess I'm sort of in maybe the same camp as you, which is probably a lot of people when they first come to this movie, which is that technically it looks brilliant. The locations are amazing. I mean, this is obviously a Michael Mann movie, so it looks incredible. Like, I don't think I've seen Miami shown this way and every other location in the movie shown this way. You just want to be there. It's just so seductive in that sense. But I feel like I need to watch it a few more times to kind of really fully understand it. There's so much going on in the movie and you're thrown right into it, which is, I think, the point that you're supposed to kind of just be in this roller coaster ride with these people. But it's classic Man, right? Like, you're dispersed between set pieces and car chases and grand sequences with then men talking about their fading masculinities and their doubts and nihilisms and all of that, right? So that's very, very much Man. But I think it takes a little bit to kind of get into the tempo of that, unlike some of the other Man movies that we've covered on this podcast, which kind of grab you right away. This is a bit of a harder thing. So yeah, I'm curious to hear, like, from the first time you watched it to where you stand now, like what was it that sort of hooked you into it?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the assessment on the film that in a way, like Michael Mann has always been a man who, no pun intended, who is focused on, there's a lot of visual style and a lot of
Yeah.
mood And what comes along with that too is also plot and character and things like that. But it's definitely he focuses a lot on that visual style and vibe, basically. And this is, I think, the
Mm-hmm.
pinnacle of that, where it
Yeah.
is more so that than anything else. And definitely the first time I saw the film, much like you, I couldn't really follow the plot. I wasn't really sure what was going on, what I was supposed to be following, and that was because I was going to the movie looking for plot. And I think this movie, what opened it up for me was now I understand the plot because I've seen it maybe like 2 dozen times, but it's putting that piece aside and just kind of getting into the mood and just feeling what this movie feels like. I think, first of all, in terms of the Miami piece, Miami looks beautiful in it. This is one of the beginnings of his movies where he would shoot everything on HD. So much like
Right.
Collateral too. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the HD cameras they were using just really captures the glow of cities at night. And that's why Collateral, I
Totally.
think, captures LA so well that no other movie really has. And Miami,
Mm-hmm.
after having been there, it is similar in LA of like there's just glow that the city has where it comes alive at night and turns into something different. And the HD cameras, especially in the opening scenes when on the rooftops, talking about this
Yeah.
guy who's basically been found out he was that he was a
It
snitch,
glows.
and
Yeah.
just it's just incredible. You can see there's sharpness. You can see way into the distance too, which is
Yeah.
something also in Miami you can kind of see very far. And there's also this sense of you kind of feel the humidity in the air. There was a hurricane going on when they were shooting this. It was a
Right.
total disaster shoot, but
Right.
it adds like this electricity into the things that are going on. Sometimes you'd see lightning back in the background just because that was what was happening. These really cool breezes. There's a scene at the end when he's saying goodbye to Gong Li. I can feel the humidity and the warm
Mm-hmm.
breeze in the air that come from these tropical cities, and you can see his beautiful hair getting blown back in the wind, and you know, so definitely he captures, I think, the feeling of Miami, the city of Miami, in that way. But in terms of the film, I think this really is a, you know, again, like you said, kind of classic man themes, but it's very meditative on this whole concept, which he's used in several of his films before, about time is luck. It's a line that is quoted by Gong Li in this film. It was also a line used in Heat and also in Manhunter. And in those two movies, time is luck was supposed to mean like, you know, why are you wasting your time pursuing this criminal case? Or why don't you slow down and focus on your family because we don't have a lot of time? Is, you know, women would be saying it to men in each one of these movies. And in this movie, also, a woman says it to a man, but it is about a relationship and that sometimes you meet someone and it's not going to last. And every single moment you have with this person is that luck that time is giving you, right? To me, that's what this movie reframes that Michael Mann theme into being one about this romance. And to me now, it's what the romance of this movie, which I didn't really jive with the first time I saw it, to be honest. That is what to me sucks me in. Like Colin Farrell and Gong Li's relationship in this movie is electric, amazing, and now watching sort of it evolve because you know where it's going now. The way that he captures these looks that they're making each other, you can see there's like this instant attraction. What do they do with it? Because Colin Farrell's character is undercover, and Gong Li is one of the kingpins in this drug organization he's trying to infiltrate, but she doesn't know that. So it like similar to in a relationship when something starts, you know, people you do put on a little bit of a mask and don't really reveal yourselves in the beginning as you play this kind of like flirtatious dance, and that's what happens to them. And then at the end of the movie, again, like the luck runs out, like Colin Farrell says to her, and I just love that scene in the beach at the end when they're sort of
Mm-hmm.
reflecting back on this thing that was they knew was never going to go anywhere because of circumstances beyond their own control, which is a lot of the case too with relationships that, you know, you fall in that are short-lived. It's not anyone's fault necessarily. It's over and you have to be happy with the time that you had. And that's why time is luck. So it's really the romance in this movie now, beyond all the vibes, that
Mm.
just draws me in. I just love the relationship between them and seeing them kind of flirt and go back and forth. And it's yeah, that to me is what stands out. But like you said, first time I was like, I don't get this. I don't
Yeah.
feel this. It felt very empty to me, this movie, and when I saw it in theaters in 2006.
Yeah.
But now it's all the cup is overflowing in a way now for me. It's like there's so much in this movie that I love it. I absolutely love
Yeah.
this film.
I could see that. I mean, I didn't find it to be empty. I could see that there's more beneath the surface. It just felt that I need to engage with it more and
Hmm.
kind of put in the work and kind of excavate and meet it where it's at. But I could tell that there's more just going on. Also, I think just, dialogues and such, like you can't sort of decipher very clearly what people are saying. So it takes a little bit to kind of get into that too. in a weird way, we've been covering, I mean, we just covered Gladiator and Ridley Scott. It reminded me of a little bit of a late period Ridley Scott movie in some ways too, just because of the unevenness of the acting in this movie. Like, I think Jamie Foxx is in a slightly different movie than Colin Farrell. And maybe I say this because I know that Colin Farrell doesn't even remember making the movie. So there's, some of that at play versus Jamie Foxx, like really keyed in and sort of doing all the expressions and everything. But maybe that's the point. And so there are these sort of oddities, I think, which maybe when you watch the movie more times, it starts to kind of blend in and just feel more seamless and purposeful. Versus now, it sort of felt a little uneven to me in that way.
Yeah, the Jamie Foxx stuff is interesting, and this is a controversial take, I think, among fans of this movie. But I do really prefer the director's cut version of this.
Mm,
And one of the things that adds is more scenes with Jamie Foxx and his girlfriend, and you sort of
mm,
the movie is more of a two lead film in its
mm,
director's cut version, where you see what Jamie Foxx's character is wrestling with, which again is the cost of going undercover and leaving this double life when it goes back on his home life. Colin Farrell doesn't have a
right.
home life. You don't really know kind of what's going on with him other than there's something missing in his life,
Yeah, he
which is
feels
a
very empty.
relationship. Right, he's very empty. But Jamie Foxx, it gives him more to do. This also might be a little controversial. So the movie has one of the most famous openings of all time because, like you
Yeah,
said, it drops you right in. You see the Universal logo, and then it's boom. You're into a Jay
yeah.
song. You're in the club. Stuff's happening. They're in the middle of this case. You don't know anything that's going on. And the director's cut starts with a boat chase. That's like a setup to the sting operation they're about to do with the club. And it just, to me, it's like a little slower. The music starts. It's a brilliant shot where the camera's like under the water as it sort of
Mm,
lifts up, sort of like this undercover underworld and then revealing the truth above kind of metaphor, I
mm,
think. It gets you into the vibe of it a little bit more. And even though it is
mm,
cool that you drop you right in the middle of the action, I sort of like getting lulled into the world and like the harmony of what this movie operates on. It's very hard to grok, I think, otherwise. But the Jamie Foxx thing, I think his performance and his character works a lot better when there's just more to do. Again, there's a lot of on-set problems where he got mad because there was a gun that showed up on set and he left and refused to go back to where they were. There's all this back and forth stuff
right.
behind the scenes. Did affect the third act of the film, was used to be completely different. But yeah, I think Colin Farrell, despite him unfortunately being under a lot of drugs and alcohol, where he went right into rehab after this film.
Right.
I think this is one of my favorite performances of his in terms of just this guy who is so empty and he finds this something in with his relationship with Gong Li, and there's definitely something there, and they even start kind of bonding and kind of revealing themselves. He tells his back history, which I assume is real, when he's talking to her in Havana about where his
Right.
what his father came from. It could be his cover story, or that actually could be his real background. You don't really know that. What I like that, and then he has to throw it all away and go right back into the job because it is just a job. Maybe that's all that he has. And another thing I just love about this movie too is just the ending, where
Mm,
it just ends.
yeah.
There's really
There's
no
no
resolution
explanation.
too much. You don't really know what's going on with Jamie Foxx's wife, and Colin Farrell just walks into the hospital. He leaves Gong Li, and then life goes on. Which again is, I think, in terms of the romance, just another theme of there's a breakup for whatever particular reason, and you're never going to see this person again in your entire life. And okay, life goes on. I'm just going to pick up, move forward, and keep going. I mean, that the scene too on the beach, he walks away and then she's leaving on the boat. And then he kind of turns around one more time just to be like, this is it. This is the last time I think I'm ever going to see her. And just again, Colin Farrell's acting in this stuff to me just hits so hard. And I don't know if a man has ever looked hotter in a movie ever than Colin Farrell in this movie. It's just something about his haircut, his like that crazy mustache, the sort of his demeanor, the way he does his American accent in this movie. The pinnacle of male attractiveness, hotness, sexiness, whatever you want to say. Just unbelievable. Like if I just get wowed by what he does in this movie every time.
You
Insane.
have been Farrelled, it
Oh,
seems
absolutely.
like. You are
He is
Farrell for Farrell. I'm just gonna keep going on with these.
yeah. Yeah, I just love his performance in this. Just something else. I don't know. And unfortunately, it might have been maybe the drugs and alcohol. And obviously, I'm happy that he's doing much better now, and in
Yeah,
his career and also in his personal life too. But for me, this is always the purest distillation of why Colin Farrell is who he is.
I cannot top that. No, I definitely look forward to checking out this movie more times. I was not aware of the rest of the cast of the movie because I've only just known that these two guys were in it. But it was
Mm.
fun to see John Hawkes and Naomi Harris, who plays Jamie Foxx's wife. Like she's such an amazing actress, and we've seen her in lots of things, Moonlight, Oscar nominated, and such. So I was like, oh, you're in this too, and she looks amazing, and kind of you get her personality and her character like right away really inhabits it. Gong Li, who had never heard of before, like she's amazing. So as usual, like man movies, even though they can be vibe movies and more about set pieces and visuals, the actors, other than one person who we have covered in the movie Black Hat.
Yeah, I know you didn't like Hemsworth in the man
Yeah,
sphere, but no,
goodness.
I agree. The
But
cast
everybody
is
else, always brings it because they know
right.
they're in a man movie and they know they have to kind of do the work.
Yeah, the cast is really deep in this, and even some
Yeah.
great character actors that barely have any screen time. But what I love
Yeah.
about that is that you recognize these people. So there's amazing shots where they'll just be, Colin Farrell doing his thing with the criminals in the foreground, and the background you'll see every so often one of the other guys just sort of being there. So it's like they're
Mm,
even though Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx are undercover, the rest of the team is still there, just making sure everything's okay, and they're sort of blending in the background. But every so often, man, like puts them in focus for a couple seconds, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. They're there in the background too, like doing something. And if these weren't actors that you would recognize, even if you don't know their names, it sort of helps having that little bit of
yeah.
recognition. And yeah, and then just on Gong Li too, she did not know English when she made this movie and learned all the lines like phonetically, which I think is just
Mm,
incredible that she's able to pull it off. And she's an actress that I always liked, and she's a Chinese actress that I've seen a lot of
hmm.
her films before this movie. And actually, the first time I saw the movie, she didn't really work for me. I think because a lot of that. And then it's not until like seeing the movie for so many times as I have, I can really see it's not really in the dialogue with her at all. Because again, it's not her first language. She didn't even know English. But it's in these very subtle, facial movements and body language. It's a big body language movie, I feel like, because
Right.
when you are undercover, you can't say things, especially with this romance sort of being a little bit of a forbidden thing, even in the context of her getting with one of the other guys involved in the crime ring. Like that is,
Right.
that's illicit in of itself.
A
Not
whole other
alone that,
thing. Yeah.
no one knows he's a cop, but even what she's doing is bad. So like the body language between the two of them, I think that's where Gong Li's performance really shines a lot for me. Again, the more times you see it. This is definitely a movie that I do recommend people watch more than once. I mean, maybe after two times and it still doesn't hit with you, it's like, okay, like you don't need to keep trying. But when I first saw it, there was something there that I just, even though I
Yeah, I
left
see
feeling
it.
empty, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, and it just maybe it's just I've lulled myself into submission in terms of the amount of times that I've seen it. But it again, going back to just this year, captures Miami, and I'd love to be part of this Twitter discourse. I mean, clearly there is something in here. I mean, the guy who started this whole thing said this is his favorite movie of all time.
Mm.
And that's what started the, oh my God, I can't believe you like this movie better than Heat or The Insider. And then how do you like this movie at all? And it got into this whole big thing. And apparently his girlfriend did like it. So, and they're still
That's good. I
together
was curious about
from what I
that.
gather,
Yeah.
which is good. Oh,
Time is luck thing is also kind of timely. It always is timely. So, kind of thinking about that as you were saying, and I felt that even in the movie too, is that, yeah, we have limited time here. You got to make the most of it. That thing comes to life, but also there are other deeper meanings to that too, which I think was prescient in this year too, with all the stuff going on in the world, which is
hmm.
always the case. It's kind of an
Yeah,
evergreen, thematically evergreen movie in that sense, because I think that theme will always be true.
that's right. Yeah, we're only here for a limited amount of time. So at any
Yeah.
time you get, you just have to be lucky that you
Yeah.
have it because you never know when it's
Yeah.
out. I agree. Yeah. And
Yeah.
maybe as a New Year's kind of reflection thing too. That's actually why I watched the
Hmm.
movie. The first time I watched it this year was right after New Year's because it sort
Mm.
of it felt like a kind of New Year's thing for me. And then again, the three subsequent times. Hi there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I review a new release and then discuss 6 other movies made by that film's actor or director and how they shaped us. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.